caution Bahamians that there are many, many charlatans, snake oil salesmen out there.
Every dollar that we put into a young person will have a return on investment that's greater than what we can ever imagine.
If I'm going to get some funding or some support from you, how soon would I know?
Kiva Major's father speaks out on her son's murder. A Jamaican man gets 6 years in prison. The F&M chairman not buying government's no double tax claims. Plus, is Loretta Butler Turner gunning for the F&M leader post? We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Bonnie Toot and NV12 starts now. Topping news tonight, convicted drug traffickers Dwight and Kiva Major are said to be distraught over the murder of their teenage son Enrico. Police say assailants attacked and murdered the teen on the side of Blue Hill Road South Sunday night, just a week before his high school graduation. As authorities question two suspects, Major's grandfather is speaking out.
She is distraught. She is, like she would say, numb. She says that her experience in jail was not as bad as the experience that she is going through at this time.
She temporarily lost her freedom and lost her husband to federal prison. But Kiva Major's father, Ronald Dorsett, says none of that compares to the tragic loss of her 17-year-old son. Police say Enrico Major was walking south along Blue Hill Road with one of his friends Sunday night when they were attacked by a group of men. One of the assailants allegedly chopped Major in the head with a cutlass, while another stabbed him in the upper left back. Dorsett says his daughter is in shock.
I mean, she's grieving. She's grieving. She's taking it badly. It's a bad time for her.
Enrico's parents, Dwight and Kiva Major, were both extradited to the U.S. on charges of conspiracy to import cocaine and marijuana into the United States. Kiva Major was released in 2008 as part of a plea deal and is currently living in New Providence. Major is still serving time in federal prison. However, Dorsett says he's certain his son-in-law has received the bad news.
He being the father, I know he's taking it. It's rough on him, being incarcerated at the same time.
Dorsett says Enrico was the third of 4 children and would have graduated from Hope Academy next week. Had his life not been snuffed out, he says he believes his grandson would have gone far.
Enrico was a fine young man. He was respectable. He was friendly. He was one that anytime we asked him to do a particular thing, he would do it. He was a type of young man that would have gone far if the Lord didn't have other plans. He wanted to get into engineering and had already been accepted, I think, by one of the schools.
Police say they are questioning 2 men in connection with Major's stabbing death. They arrested a 36-year-old man from Blue Hill Road South around 4 p.m. Monday and a 34-year-old man around 1:30 this morning. Dorsett says the family wants justice.
Crime ought not to go unpunished. I mean, you do the crime, you spend the time. I would wish that the person to commit such a dastardly act ought to get the full extent of the law.
He had these words for his grandson's killers.
Brothers, I'm sorry for you. I pray for you. And I trust that you would ask God to forgive you for what you've done.
A 49-year-old Jamaican man has been sentenced to 6 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to charges related to Saturday's $3.2 million drug bust on Grand Bahama. He was charged in the magistrate's court today, along with a Freeport man, days after DEU officers discovered over 32,000 marijuana plants on 15 marijuana plots. Errol Wallace, seen here in the white t-shirt, was convicted in the magistrate's court today after he pleaded guilty to possession of dangerous drugs with intent to supply, cultivation of dangerous drugs, conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs, possession of a black Kel-Tec .223 semi-automatic weapon, and 16 rounds of ammunition. Magistrate Andrew Forbes sentenced Wallace to 2 years each for the possession, cultivation, conspiracy, and ammunition charges, and 6 years for possession of a prohibited weapon. The sentences will run concurrently. Wallace was arraigned along with 38-year-old Darren Anderson, seen here in the white jacket. The Freeport resident was denied bail after he pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs with intent to supply. According to police reports, the two men were arrested after Drug Enforcement Unit officers on Grand Bahama uncovered 15 marijuana plots containing over 32,000 marijuana plants, with an estimated street value of $3.2 million. Prosecuting officer Errol Dorset told the court today Wallace led officers to the marijuana fields and directed them to a tent, where they found marijuana, $305, and a passport in his name. He also reportedly had over $1,200 in his possession. Wallace told the court he came to Nassau on a Caribbean airline flight in January on vacation and traveled to Grand Bahama as a tourist, where he says he has friends. Asked where he got the semi-automatic weapon from, the Jamaican national said he found it. Forbes told Wallace he has the right to appeal the sentences imposed by the magistrate's court. Meantime, Darren Anderson will return to court on July 8th. Despite assurances by State Minister for Finance Michael Halkitis that there will be no double taxation when value-added tax is implemented, F&M Chairman Darren Cash today insisted otherwise. Cash pointed to the Prime Minister's remarks in the House of Assembly last week, where he indicated lower customs duties would not be in the works for the initial period of that implementation. Cash accused Halkitis of trying to convince the Bahamian people they should not take the Prime Minister at his word. Dana Smith reports.
The party chairman this morning cast doubts on the state minister's comments, accusing Halkitis of trying to double back on what the prime minister said and claiming the government will make no meaningful, if any, changes to the customs duty rates.
The Minister of State for Finance, when he spoke yesterday, went to great lengths to do the most impressive degree of backstrokes we've seen in a while, as he tried to double back on what the Prime Minister said in his communication about double taxation. And the point is, they want Bahamians to disbelieve what they've read, and I think most of them understand the English language very well.
After announcing the final date and rate for VAT implementation, Prime Minister Perry Christie said the government would not consider customs duty reductions until the 2015-2016 fiscal period. He said the government is not announcing any wide-scale reduction in import duties and excise taxes at this time, prompting the opposition to accuse the government of double taxing Bahamians by moving forward with VAT without announcing widespread duty reductions. Responding to the opposition yesterday, Halkitis said there will be no double tax. He added some have willfully misinterpreted the Prime Minister's words, explaining Christie never said there would never be any reductions. Halkitis said the government is working on a select list that will come into effect with VAT. But Cash insisted Christie was clear in his budget communication and double taxation is coming. He said the public should take the Prime Minister at his word.
The Prime Minister intends on January 1, 2015 to bring in VAT at 7.5%. He also intends to make no meaningful, if any, change in the custom duties rates. Now the Minister of State for Finance is trying to make you believe that you should not take the Prime Minister at his word. The reality is that they are going to come with double taxation, and that is grossly unfair to the Bahamian people.
Cash said if the Prime Minister had specific plans regarding customs reductions, that should have been clear from the start. Cash said a lack of specifics only inspires a lack of confidence in the government.
If he had any specifics, he would have mentioned them in his budget communication. He did not. Words like, I don't think so, we will look at, we might, are not words that inspire confidence among Bahamians. And the Minister of State for Finance should know this. They ought to be a lot more deliberate in what they put forward so that they can inspire confidence.
Halkitis did not give details about what will be on the select list of reductions, only stating the government will focus on what can affect the cost of living. Cash this morning had joined the press on the steps of cabinet, where he accused the PLP of treating the media like potcakes and said he stands in support of the press. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller yesterday defended government's decision to implement VAT at a rate of 7.5% in January 2015, arguing that government has to introduce the new tax to arrest the rise in public debt. Miller noted that if the debt continues to rise unchecked, it would eventually lead to the devaluation of the Bahamian dollar, a horrific situation that he says the country must avoid. Miller spoke during the budget debate in the House of Assembly just after East Grand Bahama MP Peter Turnquist summed up the government's fiscal plan as an unacceptable burden on the most vulnerable residents. Miller said he can't understand why some F&M MPs continue to criticize the government over VAT when the Ingram administration was considering implementing the same tax had it won the general election. Meantime, the F&M is also taking government to task over its web shop regulation revenue predictions. Last week, Prime Minister Christie said government conservatively expects web shop revenue to provide an intake of 0.14% of GDP in the next fiscal year, which is around $12 million. Cash said Christie should throw in the towel if $12 million is the best the government can come up with.
The fact that after taking the country down this path of web shop regulation for 2 years, the best that the Minister of Finance could come with is $12 million. That alone is reason for him to throw in the towel and give up that portfolio. It is a travesty. It is a failure of leadership. Now, they have a lot of explaining to do, and I hope that they get about explaining soon.
Former PLP Minister Loftus Roker asserted Christie made a $1 million mistake with last year's gaming referendum and should resign. Cash also called on the Christie administration to publicly explain how it arrived at the $12 million figure.